Okay, hi Peter, and welcome back to what is our second discussion. I don't think we're ready to call it an episode yet, given that we've just started. But yeah, it's two guys having a chat about stuff. I'd like to talk to you today about retirement. We're both retired, and we're both retired early. And I know that retirement is quite a personal experience, and everybody's retirement and transition into retirement is going to be different. But I think it's important that the more we talk about retirement and share our experience with each other, that other people who might be going through the process or about to go through the process, in some way it might help them in their own, you know, movement into retirement. So let me start off by asking you a question, and that is, it's quite broad really. So when did you retire? Why did you retire, and how did you retire?
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty broad. Well, I retired when I turned 60, so around about 3 years ago. And predominantly, I ran out of things to do in a way. And I thought, I don't need to work. I was one of the fortunate people that didn't need to work. So I thought I would give this retirement thing a go. Now, I've, I've, I've sort of slipped into what I now call semi-retirement because I'm doing all kinds of other things. I'm developing apps, and I've got a drone license, and I'm flying drones, and I'm doing some consulting on the side and that sort of stuff. So I'm not really retired, like full-time retired, but I am. So it's a really strange mix that I've achieved. And one of the reasons that I've gone down that path is because I got bored really fast doing nothing. And probably a bit like yourself, where you've spent your entire life having things to do from the minute you got out of bed till the minute you went back to bed. It's really hard to sort of stop the mind going down that path. But I retired because I wanted to spend more time with my wife. I wanted to spend. My three children have all gone off to university now, so I think that working was a good way to not have to have too much to do with them, and and now they're gone, so I don't have to worry about that. And I wanted more free time. We bought ourselves a motorhome, and we love the thing. We travel all over the country, and whenever we got a few days off, we just go and jump in that and go somewhere different. And it's the spontaneity of it all which I enjoy about retirement. I mean, you've always got to keep an eye on the pennies, as you would know, and that's always at the forefront of my mind. I think you think, well, if I live another 20 years, are we going to be able to afford to do nothing for 20 years and still pay for it? I'm not really sure, but it's so far so good. I mean, I love my retirement life. I've decided that I'm actually just really lazy.
Well, I don't believe you're lazy for a minute, Peter, after hearing the list of things that you're still doing. But it's interesting to hear how you came to that decision, and how you've dealt with it. Mine is almost totally different. I hadn't planned to retire at all. I was 55 years old, and I'd anticipated doing at least another 5 years, so getting to 60 like yourself. I love the job that I had. I love the people I work with. I was really bought into the company. And then suddenly, and almost overnight, that changed because someone was brought into the company to fix a problem in a different department to mine, but it had an impact on kind of everything I did on a daily basis. And I realised that I wasn't able to change that situation, and I wasn't really able to add much value to the business. So I decided to walk away without really too much planning. I'd been in a position for probably about a year where I could afford to do it, but didn't really want to, and was looking forward to sort of lining the nest a little bit more over the next 5 years. But once I made the decision, I think I've come to terms with it quite well. And the old cliche of not believing that I had time to fit in a job around everything I did was very much the case with me. And I busied myself kind of domestically, really. I've got two kids at school, be going to university next year. And my wife decided a few years ago to go back to university and study for a degree. So I'm kind of supporting three students in my unemployment or early retirement, whichever way you want to call it. But I'm at the moment, and it's been about 18 months, I've got no real desire to do anything in terms of business or employment.
Okay, so when you left, and I think you left for good reason actually, and it's interesting to see somebody who actually stands by their word, if you like, you know. So it's nice to come across somebody that doesn't just put up with the status quo if he doesn't think the status quo is working, and I think that's a good thing. Were you not? Wasn't there part of you that wanted to continue to work though? I know with me, I just got a bit fed up with it all, really. But I think if I was 55, I don't know that I could have stopped. I think I would have probably looked for something else to go on with.
I think I would have expected myself to have wanted to work, but I realised pretty quickly that I'd spent 15 years with a company that I just adored. I loved everything about it, and I couldn't see myself working for another company and getting as much satisfaction and sense of achievement as I had done over the previous 15 years. So I guess I was kind of a victim of my own success. Where I did struggle, I think, was one of identity. I'd been the marketing director for this company for 15 years. The company had grown exponentially over that time. And I was regularly speaking to audiences of 200 people because it was a very sales and marketing driven business. And as the marketing director, we used to get together with the sales teams at least once a quarter for a conference, and I'd be speaking to a lot of people and sounding as though I knew what I was talking about and getting lots of positive feedback, and that really defined who I was. I also had a fantastic team that I built up over that time that kind of ran itself to a large extent, but I was always the person they turned to when there was a problem, and I enjoyed problem solving. So to go from a role which really dominated my life, where I felt very much needed and respected and admired and all those good things, to now walking the dog on a daily basis and not sometimes even getting a nod from somebody else walking their dog in the opposite direction. That's been the biggest area of adjustment. It's that being part of a big team and knowing who you are and knowing what you do and being respected for that, to being just an ordinary guy out walking his dog on a daily basis. So that's been the challenge for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that's unusual. The loss of identity thing, I think that's quite common. I was something somewhat similar. I was CEO of a company for 15 years, and then decided to go off into a different domain. And all of a sudden, you've gone from being this sort of super, in your own mind anyway, this sort of super important person that's a big cog in the wheel, to people going, well, who the hell are you? And it's really, in some ways, it's a real blow to your ego, I think, but it makes you think more about your mortality, and it makes you think more about the time that you've got and how you spend that time. I mean, and on that subject, I mean, what do you do during your day apart from walking the dog, which I mean could easily take up an hour or two of anyone today? But other than that, what do you do to keep yourself occupied?
Well, it does. Walking the dog is now something I enjoy and look forward to, rather than just being, that's another chore because I've got a dog that needs a couple of hours exercise every day. So I still get up at 6:15 in the morning and I take the kids to the train station, and then I come back, and once I've had some breakfast, I'll get out with the dog, and then before I know it, I'm back around midday, and I'm thinking about picking the kids up and maybe getting some chores done. And now, probably in the last year or so, I've become the main cook in the house. So I'm preparing dinner for the family because my wife's got her head in her books the whole time. So I'm busying myself with domestic chores like cooking, cleaning, and chauffeuring the kids around. So that's pretty much my day. I used to play a lot of golf. I thought I'd have much more time for that, but I can't seem to fit that in. I do have a boat, which I like to take advantage of nice summer days on. But other than that, I think I'm still decompressing, to be honest. I think I'm still adjusting, and I don't want to put any pressure on myself. So I suppose there's an element of loneliness, but I've always enjoyed my own company, so I'm kind of reveling in that to some extent. But on that, you mentioned health and mortality, and that's probably been one of the biggest drivers for me to take advantage of retiring early, and I'm very lucky that I've been able to financially. I've seen in the last 18 months half a dozen friends that have suffered or been diagnosed with cancer. And I lost quite a dear friend a couple of months ago to it. And that really brings it home to you when you're seeing people of your own age whose lives are so badly affected and in one case taken way too early. And that really gives you the motivation to try and do something enjoyable and worthwhile other than working. I don't know whether you found the same. It's just the way it is when you get to a certain age, I guess.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I think it's healthy to actually realise that you're mortal, because it also changes your thought process a bit. You start to think about, what actually makes me happy, and I think when you're retired, you want to do more things that make you happy than unhappy. I'm a bit like you in the sense that I actually don't suffer from loneliness at all, because I don't particularly like people much. So retirement's really good for me because I get to lock myself away in my own little castle here and only interact with the outside world when I feel like it. But what about in your case? Have you looked at making sure all your affairs are in order, or is it a bit early for you yet?
No, absolutely, I have. And, I never thought I'd be the sort of person that had a financial advisor, but I've had one in place now for 2 or 3 years. And he does remind me constantly that I'm actually okay, because I'm filled with doubt all the time. And I think that's one of the reasons I've been successful over the years, because I do suffer, I've always suffered from imposter syndrome. So I've always been really careful with my money. I've always invested because I've always expected to be found out any day and be out of work. So I've always worked really hard to build up enough savings and pay down the mortgage and get myself in a position where I can relax a little bit and not worry about losing my job. And what I was inadvertently doing was following this financial independence to retire early movement, this FIRE movement that's now become part of the retirement narrative these days. So inadvertently, I've been preparing for retirement all my life, but just not realizing it. But certainly in terms of my mortality, that's put an extra emphasis on getting everything right and in place.
Yeah, I think that whole fire movement thing, it's really taken off. I mean, I watch a fair bit of stuff on YouTube and so on, and there are so many people. I mean, there's one couple that I follow. They literally sold everything. They sold their house. They sold everything, and they just they do what's called geo arbitrage. So they've got all their money invested here in the UK with some kind of an investment fund, and then they go and live in cheap countries. So they go and live in places like Thailand for like £1,200 for a month's accommodation in a 5-star hotel. Now, I don't know how long you can actually keep that up before A, it becomes boring, and B, you get too old to really be bothered with that kind of a lifestyle. But the whole FIRE movement is an interesting concept. I mean, this whole financial independence, retire early idea is fantastic. And as long as you've got enough money put away, or you can invest that money wisely so that you've got an income for the next 30 to 40 years in their case, it's absolutely fantastic. If you're relying on something like the state pension to kick in, then you've got problems, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And the idea of moving to a cheaper country does appeal, and I think I've probably responded to some of that advertising myself, because I'm getting a fair amount of content served to me showing countries with very, very good retirement regimes and quite cheap visas to go and retire in another country. And I was also reminded when you were talking about that of you often hear about these couples that basically sell everything and then go and live on cruise ships and spend their entire lives cruising around the world from one country to the next.
Yeah, I think I'd actually slit my throat if that was my lot in life.
Yeah, the idea does not appeal to me, for sure. One of the things I have noticed, and that's, and I agree with you. You agree with me. We're both very happy in our own company, but it's not until you retire that you realise, in my case certainly, that most of my friends were work related. And whilst I still stay in touch with them, and I was out with dinner with a couple of them recently, it's amazing how your work life overlaps with your personal life, and the people you work with on a regular basis and probably see more than your family do actually become friends. And I've made a point of keeping my distance and not reaching out to them, just sitting back and waiting for invites, because although they're real friendships, I don't want to be the guy that's hanging around like a bad smell at work, and you can't help talking about work, and I'm very respectful of the people that have taken my role, and I've got to give them a chance rather than keep talking to those guys. So those sort of conversations with myself have been going on. And then the friends you had outside of work, of course, are all still working. So, when I've got 4 or 5 hours free on a Wednesday afternoon and want to pop down to the boat and could do with some company, then of course they're working. So I think if you retire early, you have to be comfortable with your own company.
Yeah, you do, or have a spouse that's quite happy to do the same. I mean, in my case, my wife still works because she wants to. She loves what she does, and she goes out every day and she goes and does her thing, and I can't see that changing for the foreseeable future in her case. So what we do is we sort of marry up my free time with her free time when she's got it, and that's when we go away and do things together. But yeah, I think that it also allows you to do things. I often think about my kids, and I think it's really hard for kids these days when they leave university or wherever to start a career. What are they going to do? The market's moving so fast, the jobs aren't there, and so on and so on and so forth. But it also is an opportunity, both in their case and in our case, I think, to say, well, what have you always wanted to do? What is it that you've actually missed out on in life because of your career or because of the sort of the laser focused approach you've had to your life? And I think once you start to, like for me, I enjoy writing. So I do a lot of writing these days just because I enjoy doing it, and I find that things like that, you can open up a million things to do during the day that keep you occupied without actually making any money out of it. So, but you're enjoying it more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we're quite lucky that we've retired without perhaps the financial stress that a lot of people face. I consider myself very fortunate to have done that, but it doesn't mean to say it's not without its challenges, because there are lots of things that you have to think about differently. Filling your time is just one thing. I started doing TikToks literally the day I quit my job, and it's a bit of fun. I enjoy it, and there's a nice community where if you keep off the religion and the politics, then you generally get
They're my two favourite subjects.
Yeah, they're my two favourite subjects. But every time I talk about them, you've got to put a tin hat on and prepare for the flak to come your way. So yeah, it's not easy. But I think it gives you being retired gives the opportunity to do what you want to do and what's important to you, and whether that's health and fitness, or in your case, time to write, or start doing some social media. That's great, and I think what it also gives you is it gives you patience, and it gives you time to really listen to other people. I used to run around at 100 mile an hour the whole time, and although I heard people and what they said, I never really listened to them. I never really engaged, particularly with strangers. Whereas now I found myself much more interested in talking to other people and getting to know them. And I'm not particularly sociable, so it tends to be on a dog walk where you've got two dogs that are interested in each other, so you feel obliged to have a chat. But I've met some really interesting characters that I wouldn't necessarily have given the time to. But now I'm retired, I feel much more open to having those sort of meaningful conversations.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can treat your life a little bit like a holiday. You know yourself, when you go away on a holiday, you tend to interact with people a lot more than you do at home, and so retirement gives you that opportunity to look around you and say, well, people come from around the world to see this place, and I live in it. So I found myself going and doing touristy things around the area where I live, and I can see why people come here. It's fantastic. So we are lucky. We're fortunate in that sense. I'm not a big believer in the word luck, though. I think people make their luck, if you want to use the word luck. I think people make their futures. You've achieved whatever you've achieved through endeavour, and I've done the same, and everybody else out there that's achieving and moving on has done the same. And I think that, I don't know that luck's the right word. I think it's commitment. Is probably a better word. If you're committed to something and you follow it through, for me it's all about internalising the want. When you want something badly enough, it just tends to materialise for you, because you do things in the real world that make that happen.
So one of the things that's probably most important for everyone when they're considering retirement, and that's the financial side and budgeting for retirement, and how much do you need and how long you can need it for. And whilst we're both in a very fortunate position where the financial side of retirement isn't so much of an issue, we've still got a budget, but it's perhaps not as stressful. I think it's certainly the case for me that I'm spending a lot less in retirement than I thought I would. Things may change in the future, but I've got no huge ambitions to travel the world and go on lots of fancy holidays or buy lots of toys. If anything, my toys have become less important. I've got no interest in buying new cars, and that could be something to do with maybe the image I used to have and feel as though I should be maintaining. But I think my materialistic needs are significantly lower than they were when I was working, and I don't see that changing, because I think your priorities change. Have you felt the same way?
Yeah, I have actually. I think I think my cost of living is lower than I expected as well, and for the same reasons in a lot of ways. I mean, I drive a car that's 14 years old, and the thing died the other day, and I thought, oh my God, I've got to get another car. And I was tossing up whether to buy a Range Rover or something, and then I thought, this is ridiculous. I can fix the one I've got for £1,000, so that's what I did. And I love my car. It's sort of because I've had it for so long, and it just feels like part of me. So I spent £1,000 on the car, and instead of spending 25 grand on a new one, I just fixed this one. So I'm £24,000 better off as a result. With regard to other buying habits, I mean, I'm a bit of a Temu addict, actually. So I keep buying crap on Temu, much to my wife's disgust.
My kids told me, don't buy on Temu because they steal your credit card details, and it's all a big scam.
No, it's not. I don't think it. I mean, I've got a lot of stuff. I pimped my motorhome up using Temu, stuff from Temu, for very little money, and all kinds of things. But yeah, I think with regard to finance and being able to finance your retirement, I mean, you've got to look at that when you're 20, not when you're 60. And that's what I did. Is I took out a pension plan when I was in my 20s, and thank God, because now that 40 years has passed, and I had access to funds when I needed them to enable me to retire. So I think that pre-planning is really, really important if you do want to have a long retirement. Some people want to work till the day they drop, and that's fine too. The other thing is that in my case, and soon to be in your case as well, both of our wives still work. So, the actual outflow of money is tempered a little bit by the income that they generate.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think planning for your retirement when you're literally straight into your first job, I think is really important because of the way money works and compounding. The more you put in at a younger age, the more likely you are to be able to be in that position to retire early. And then it's about choice. And and for me, I think I was quite cautious with money. I only spent what I earned. I never got into debt. I was always saving or trying to pay the mortgage down, and I was doing that for slightly different reasons. But at the back of my mind, I was giving myself the ability to choose when I retired, choose what I wanted to do, and accumulate some kind of wealth to be in that sort of safe position, and that was really important to me. Whereas I saw sort of peers that would spend every penny they had and use what they were earning to leverage more money just to live a more extravagant lifestyle, and that sort of thing doesn't last very long. And they may regret that later in life. But I think probably finish up by saying planning early is really important, and giving yourself that choice as to be able to retire when you want to is really important. And for some people, that might not be at 55 or 60 or even 65 or even 70. And I think it's really important to retire when you feel you're ready to retire, rather than when you either have to retire or something that's been forced upon you. It is a difficult transition to go from a full-time position to doing nothing, for lots and lots of different reasons. Money's just part of it. But I would say to anyone, unless you feel you're ready to retire, then carry on working, or even just drop the hours a little bit if you can, and see how you feel about it.
Yeah, no, I would echo all of that. I think retiring when you want to is absolutely key to happiness and key to your future happiness. There's nothing worse than feeling that you have to slog your way through life or slog your way into a job every day, just to keep the bills paid. So, I think retirement's what you make it. Like life is what you make it. If you want it to be a miserable existence, it will be, and if you want it to be something really cool, and that is completely different for every single individual, then it will be. So, what sort of gives me the jollies, or what makes me happy, is not the same things that would make you happy. So it's a very individual thing. But the financial planning to get there in the first place is something that you need to put on a set and forget basis, so that when you're 20, you're talking about compounding interest and so on, and when you're 20 or 30 or 25 or whatever it is, you start that process, and then that money just goes into your fund every month when your salary comes in, and you don't think about it. It's not money that's yours to spend, and so therefore it just sits there, and then at some point in your life you're going to come along and say, shit, I've got this massive accumulation of funds here available to me, so I can either pay off my house or I can do whatever I need to do. But there's no other way I know of, unless you win the lotto or something, of accumulating large sums of money for ordinary people. And I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one final thought along the same sort of lines, and that is, it's important to understand how much is enough. And it's not just money, but it's things. So many people, I think, carry on working because they haven't figured out what's enough. So they just keep going, and they want to get to that, that bigger, better car, the bigger, better house, and the flashier holidays. And they're always looking for the next best thing, and they don't actually sit back and think, how much is enough? And I think those are the people that haven't got the work and home life balance right, and get into difficulties later on in life, whether that's burnout or relationship issues or whatever. So the advice I give is try and figure out where your enough is, and aim for that. And once you've got there, then don't worry about the rest. It's not important. What's really important is being able to do what you want to do while you're still healthy enough to do it.
Yep, I concur on all of that. Yep, it's been a really interesting discussion, this one. I've enjoyed doing this. So, let's look forward to the next one, Jeff. I think that I've learned a lot out of this one, so it's good.
Good. Okay. Well, see you on the next one. Thanks, Peter.